The Batteries Included podcast is brought to you with United Chargers and their Grizzly range. The next generation of Grizzly is here. Meet the Grizzly Ultimate, the most powerful AC Level 2 charger for home use. With a maximum current of 80 amps, that's 19.2 kilowatts. Your vehicle could be charged up to twice as fast as a standard level 2 and up to 15 times faster than a level 1. And of course it's Wi-Fi connected, so you can take control of your home charging, view stats, set a charging schedule, take part in demand response programs and control your charger remotely. And that joins the lineup alongside the original Grizzly Classic. The Grizzly Duo, designed to charge two vehicles at the same time. The Grizzly Mini, a portable charging station. And the Grizzly Smart, a revolutionary smart EV charger. Those chargers can adjust the current from 16 amps up to 40 amps, that's 9.6 kilowatts. Plus, the Grizzly Ranger IP67 rated, built in Canada, and with the highest quality materials. You can order yours right now. Go to unitedchargers.com, that's unitedchargers.com.
Hello and welcome to the Batteries Included podcast. It's June the 14th. 2024, and this is episode number 41. Thank you very much for joining us. On today's show, we'll be talking about Ford shuttering its Model E dealership program, Tesla shareholders voting to restore Musk's multi-billion-dollar pay package, fast charging not degrading batteries more than slow charging, and of course, much, much more. I'm Dominic Ioni. Joining us today via Time Machine is the square shooting Mr. Tom Malogny, senior editor at Inside EVs and host of the YouTube channel State of Charge. We also have the mirthful Mr. Martin Lee from the EV News Daily podcast, which is available on all the best podcast platforms. And of course, Kyle Connor joins us from the majestic, practically palatial halls of Out-of-Spec Studios, where he produces high voltage videos for a number of YouTube channels. All right. So actually, Kyle is not, if you're watching this on YouTube, you can see Kyle is not actually here at this very moment, but he will be shortly. But let's kick this show off, Martin, with the EV News Daily Weekly Reporting Roundup.
All right, let's get into the news then. It's back, by the way. It's good, isn't it? China has criticized the European Union's decision to raise tariffs on Chinese EVs, calling it a blatant act of protectionism. Yeah, pretty much. The European Commission announced that starting in July, tariffs will be imposed on Chinese cars. EVs coming into the European Union, increasing the duties from 10% at the moment to 38% for some companies. It's different for different EV makers, but SAIC, who make MG, for instance, facing that almost 40% tariff. Yes, it will hit Tesla as well because they import from Giga Shanghai, unless the European Commission try and do some kind of favor to Tesla. Otherwise, they'll have to make more than just some Model Ys from Giga Berlin in order to avoid those price increases. Already a notice on the Tesla website saying buy your cars now because prices go up. They'll have to add that tariff on from the 1st of July. But of course, it's the end of the quarter as well, so you'd expect Tesla to pull any lever they could. This decision follows an investigation that concluded the Chinese EV industry benefits from unfair subsidies, posing a threat to EU battery electric vehicle producers. Hyundai, earlier this week, introduced a new small EV based on the combustion car, the Casper, but it won't be called the Casper in all parts of the world. I'm wondering why. Probably legal stuff. They're going to call it the Insta, not Instagram, but INSTER. It's a model exclusive to the Korean market at the moment, but it will become certainly a European car. I'm imagining not the US, a subcompact EV, about 221 miles, that's 356 kilometers of range. Tesla is collaborating with Baidu to enhance their mapping software in China. The partnership will improve FSD systems' chances of obtaining the Chinese approval they need to start working there. Well, Tesla's providing a big incentive as well for UK buyers. Of course, our right-hand drive cars come from Giga Shanghai. Now it's the end of the month, last 2 weeks of the quarter. They've added 15,000 miles of free supercharging. Supercharging's back, baby, which is great. No longer looking for a grandfathered-in car to get you free supercharging miles. One of the things they've done for the UK market to juice the sales at the end of the quarter. Well, from January to April earlier this year, the worldwide usage of batteries for EVs topped 100 gigawatt hours. That was a 14% increase compared to the same period last year. Iona is the new charging network for North America. It's BMW, Honda, GM, Hyundai, Kia, Merc, and Stellantis. They put out their first bit of information this week. Not a huge amount of stuff to get our head around. We know their headquarters are going to be in North Carolina, in Durham, actually. They're going to have a series of labs, 7 of them, I think, around the country. Quarterback lab is what they've called it. So that every possible car, every possible over-the-air update, they say, a lot of them have come from, nearly all of the people working there have come from positions at either the charging companies, infrastructure, car makers, OEMs. They want this to work, and they know the problems that have sort of besieged some charging networks around the US and North America, and they want the interoperability testing to be at the core of what they do to resolve customer problems more efficiently. And talking of charging, a recent JD Power study this week revealed that the other EV charging networks in the US are catching up to the Tesla Supercharger network, down just 1 point on customer satisfaction. That's largely margin of error, but Tesla's Supercharger network still easily the number 1 network for customer satisfaction, but the others got big improvements. Are you seeing that in your day-to-day charging, in real-life experience? We'd love to know. The 2025 model year Nissan Leaf now on sale in the US. It's $28,000, continuing the Leaf's tradition of affordability. It starts at 40 kilowatt hours, EPA range of 149 miles. Well, last month in May, the price gap between used EVs and used combustion cars in the United States reached its widest point yet in favor of EVs. So if anyone tells you this weekend they'd love to drive an EV but they're too expensive, tell them to buy a used one because there's a $2,500 difference now. The average sale price of a used EV in the United States last month was $28,700. A used combustion car, $31,500. So that narrative is just nonsense now. It's actually cheaper to buy a used EV. Well, starting from the 1st of July, as Dom Ted said a moment ago, we'll get to this in the news, all 4 dealerships in the US will be authorized to sell the company's electric vehicles. An end of the Model E certification program that required big investments from dealers. Ford has also been strategically expanding their secretive low-cost EV team, capitalizing on some layoffs in the EV industry over the last year. A TechCrunch article this week talked all about Ford's secret team. Now 300 employees coming from the likes of Rivian and Tesla, Canoo, and more. General Motors revised their 2024 projections for electric vehicle sales down, well on GM, by 50,000. The new 320 kilowatt Flow ultra-fast DC chargers are now being made at their Auburn Hills, Michigan factory, designed to meet the NEVI standards and Buy America Act as well. Mercedes-Benz high-powered charging are going to use, I think, some of the best in the business, the Alpatronic hardware, the HYC 400, Hypercharger 400 across the United States Mercedes-Benz network that they are rolling out. That's great news and really good hardware. Alpine, the sporty bit of Renault, unveiled their A290 hot hatch based on the Renault 5, but wider and longer and all sorts of extra juicy stuff, but I don't think the US market's going to get it. And EV buyers in the United States have collectively saved over $1 billion in upfront costs since the Inflation Reduction Act gave that money off of new cars at the point of purchase, cash on the hood, if you want to call it that, with the IRA Act of 2022. First few months of this year, saving over $1 billion cumulatively for US buyers. That is your news this weekend. Look out for a deep dive on my podcast channel, looking into what the China subsidies from the European Union will do, possibly to the market of EVs, what it means for the US buyers as well. Of course, you've got 100% tariffs being added, but that doesn't really affect anything at the minute. You can't buy one, but we do. And we buy a lot of them. And what these new tariffs will mean, there's a lot to get into. So I'll put a special edition out in my podcast feed. Check it out in the usual places you get podcasts. And we'll dive deep into what these tariffs mean. And that is your news this week. I think you're muted, Dom. I can carry on talking, but people have heard enough of me already. Still muted. Still muted, Dom. Still muted. Dom. I mean, there we go. I was going to wait for the viewers to put it in the comments and just show it on screen for you.
All right. So thank you, Martin, for that. I missed that music. I miss your daily, weekly reporting roundup.
back.
So it's great. Before we get going, if you usually watch the show stream on Facebook, you'll notice that we're not there this week. So Facebook has increased the number of followers a page needs to have live stream privileges, and we are short like 15 followers. So if you don't follow us on Facebook, maybe please help us out and give us a follow there, and that'd be great. Thank you so much. All right, so lots to talk about today, including what's it like to drive an EV through Europe, east to Asia. But first, Tom, who is not on the screen right now, but will be shortly, published a piece on Inside EVs about Ford ending its Model E dealership program, which, among other things, was supposed to make the EV buying process a whole lot less painless for customers. So let's go to Tom now via Time Machine and have him explain what's going on here. Hey, Tom.
Dominic, how are you?
I'm doing pretty good.
So yeah,
I guess, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, sorry I can't be here live today on the Batteries Included podcast, but I have a family event that's kind of an all-day event that I have to attend to. So I asked Dom if he wouldn't sit in with me for a few minutes so we could at least talk about one topic that's really important to me. So Dom, take it away.
It's kind of a big deal. So you wrote an article for Inside EVs, and I guess not too many people were privy to this information, so you kind of got the scoop here that Ford has canceled its Model E dealership program and set EV pricing. So that's kind of a big change up because this has been in the works for a while, right? You reported on the original plan when they put this into place, right? So maybe just tell us a little bit about what the Model E dealership program was.
Yeah, so I was invited back in 2022. It was in September 2022 to Ford's annual dealership meeting, annual dealer meeting. They didn't invite a lot of journalists. There was about 6 or 7 of us there. That was it, because it was mostly Ford representatives and big dealership owners. For the most part in the U.S., we don't have mom and pop dealership owners. There's dealers that show up that own 200-300 dealerships, and that's big business, car dealerships. At this dealer meeting, they announced to their dealers that they were splitting the company into like 3 parts. It was the Ford Pro, which is like the commercial division, the vans and trucks and things. Ford Blue Oval, which was the pretty much all their combustion vehicles and also plug-in hybrids. And Ford Model E, which was going to be a division that was all electric, 100% electric, not plug-in hybrid, not hybrid. It was only for Ford BEVs. And what Ford was going to do was kind of make the dealers jump through hoops a little bit to sell BEVs. They had to be a Ford Model E certified dealer. And there was 2 levels of that. There was certified elite and certified. And the difference was based on how much infrastructure you would agree to install on your premises. Like they needed to install 2 DC fast chargers if you wanted to be the certified elite, and only 1 DC fast charger if you were going to be certified. But installing charging equipment, Dom, wasn't the only part of this.
Right.
Yeah, they also had to take on special training. They had to offer a drop-off, like a concierge drop-off and pickup service for customers. And they also had to agree to set pricing. And now the pricing wasn't set by Ford. The dealer got to set the price. Like the dealer could say, I'm going to sell Ford F-150 Lightning for, MSRP, or 1,000 under MSRP, or whatever. But
Right.
They had to set that price, and they had to post it on Ford's main website. So if you wanted a Ford electric vehicle, you would go to Ford's main website, not a dealer website, and you could cross shop your local dealers on who sells it for the best price, no haggle price. And then you would click to buy, and you would then be taken to the dealership's website. You could do it all online, and even ask for home delivery of the vehicle. So you would never go to a dealership.
Sounds good.
Yeah, it sounds good. And I mean, we've seen how the electric vehicle community has embraced direct sales, and not going to dealerships, not haggling, spending 2 hours fighting over it, and then walking out saying, did I really get a good price? And then you find out from somebody a month later, like, oh, they got it for $800 less at another dealership or whatever. So, people want this option to be able to buy direct. So this was in 2022. The program was going to start on January 1st, 2024, which is about 6-7 months ago. And the way this worked was Ford dealerships were only given a couple months to tell Ford if they wanted to be a certified elite, a certified, or if they were going to opt out of selling electric vehicles entirely. They couldn't sell Ford electric vehicles if they opted out, if they didn't agree to install infrastructure and do all this other stuff and set pricing.
Right.
So
for
initially,
at least a couple of years. For a couple of years.
For 3 years.
Right.
From January 1st, 2024 to January 1st, 2027. Now, if you opted out, and a lot of the rural dealerships did, and as I probably think they should in some areas, it was a huge investment, and in some areas that just isn't up to speed with electric vehicles. I can understand why some of the dealers said, you know what, let's wait a couple of years and maybe get in the game in 2027. So what happened was Ford was going to allow the dealers in 2025 to say, the dealers that opted out, to say, okay, I'm in starting January 1st, 2027. And initially, 65% of Ford dealers, it was 1,920 out of 2,968 Ford dealers agreed to be either certified or certified elite, which was a pretty good uptake, 65% of the dealerships. However, shortly after this, the lawsuits started to come. The dealership associations and dealer groups started suing Ford left and right all over the country. And then Ford started to backpedal a little. They loosened up the rules a couple of times. They said, okay, well, you don't have to do this. You don't have to do that. And on a couple times they did this. But now I got a call earlier this week from Ford saying we have announcement to make about Ford Model E dealerships, and I agreed to be on the call, and it was just me and someone from Electric. So Ford didn't invite a lot of people to give this news to, and we were able to talk with Marin Jaja or Jaja. I have a hard time pronouncing his last name.
Right.
He's the COO of Ford Model E, and he told us basically, look, we've we're monitoring the market, and we believe maybe it's not the right time to do this, and we're going to sunset the Ford Model E dealership certification program. So and I asked them a few questions directly, Dom, about like, is this really, are you just buckling under pressure of all these lawsuits and everything? And, we got the corporate speak that no, we're monitoring, the electric vehicle uptake. Maybe it wasn't as fast as we thought it would be. And maybe it's not the right time. And you know what? We want all of our dealers to be able to sell electric vehicles. We don't want to cherry pick just some dealers and sell electric vehicles, which, smacks right in the face of what they said just 2 years ago. When I was at these meetings and I talked to Ford about this, they were basically telling me this is an existential threat. This pivot to electrification, we have to do this. We are not competing with Tesla, with direct sales.
Right.
And we have to pivot. We have to evolve. We have to offer customers a more seamless way to purchase vehicles. We can't be stuck in this model that we've had for the last, 60, 70, 80 years. And they were really serious about, we have to do this. This isn't even a choice. We have to. And now with this announcement, it's kind of, I remember the conversations we had, Dom. It's kind of like, I feel like they're giving up. It's not good.
Well, so what is Ford? What is the downside for Ford in this situation then? Because this seems like the one of the big problems early on, especially with the rollout of the Ford F-150 Lightning, was dealer add-ons, just because of the general EV or vehicle market overall during like the pandemic and things. Vehicles were hard to get because of supply chain disruptions. So dealers are tacking on like $10,000-$20,000 on the price tags, and I think part of this was in reaction to that, possibly those market conditions.
It was partly in reaction to that, but also what Ford wanted to do was reduce the amount of inventory on each dealership, which then reduces the overall cost and allows the dealers to be more competitive. And this direct sales model would do that. The dealers would only have to keep one vehicle or two on the lot, maybe for test drives. And then, you would order your vehicle and it would get shipped to the dealership. It would be, a custom order, so to speak. And, that was one of the things they talked about being necessary to bridge the gap. And I forget the numbers, but I think Farley was saying something at the time that we're at a $6,000 per vehicle disadvantage for Tesla for a number of reasons with manufacturing, and a lot of it had to do with inventory and carrying the vehicles. So it's unfortunate because like I said, I was able to hear it right from Ford all the reasons just 2 years ago, less than 2 years ago, 19 months I think it is, why it was so important for them to pivot to this. It wasn't just some small thing. They knew it was going to be a fight, but they had to do it. It was an existential threat. And now to see them just say, what, we can't, even though they won't admit it, they just got beaten down so much by the lawsuits, the dealers complaining, the constant, money that they had to pay to fight these lawsuits, and they were losing, I think, in some states. For them to kind of throw in the towel and say, what, we did our best, but we just have to stick to the dealership model that we've used for 100 years.
Right. So now dealers are going to be stuck with having to order half a dozen vehicles or whatever kind. They can't sell it just out of the the mothership basically.
Well, will they?
I mean, yes, that's true. Will they even sell? I mean, I feel like they're going to have to eventually because as the whole range turns to EVs over time, the T3 is coming out in like a year or so. Yeah. I mean, that's going to be a big seller. I don't see how dealers can just believe they can get by selling gas vehicles over the next, decade. Maybe it'll work for a couple of years, but down the road, it seems like it's going to be difficult.
Well, that's what I feel about this. I think it maybe is going to be good for dealers in the short term. Okay. It will, and maybe even good for Ford as a company in the short term. But it could be disastrous long term. We don't know yet, but. I'm really concerned about the domestic auto industry here. GM and Ford in particular, that, by the end of next decade, they could be niche automakers if they don't really step up their game. The Chinese, the Koreans, not so much worried about the Japanese because they seem to be laggards too. But right. China is putting out some amazing vehicles. We can't keep them. That's not going to happen. We're not going to keep them out with tariffs. They're going to find a way into the market. Mm-hmm. And even some of the European automakers are more serious about investing, and they know that it's coming. So it's just unfortunate because I thought I was so happy that Ford did this, and I was I was impressed that they because this was no small thing. I mean, this was a huge announcement at the time that they were going to. They were battling the stranglehold that the dealership associations had on OEMs. And if they would have won, if they would have seen this through and were able to push this through to the dealerships, you could bet you would have seen GM do it and Dodge and Ram. You would have, if there was a precedent set that this could be done, right? But now I think the other guys are going to be like, no. We'll stick with our dealers.
Right. I mean, well, they have the choice if they see that the strength of the dealership associations, because those associations aren't just comprised of Ford dealerships, right? They're comprised of GM dealerships and
the whole state. We have NJ Car here in New Jersey. They represent 600 dealers in New Jersey. They have tremendous political clout. Yeah. And New Jersey is a small state, so the dealership associations, around the country have tremendous amount of political power. They donate, they contribute a lot to politicians, and it's a powerful lobby.
Yeah. So it should be interesting to see this play out against our own, the Rivians and Teslas and the Lucids actually too, I guess, right? All the automakers we have that don't have the traditional dealership model. So as these companies, become bigger or stronger, hopefully some of them, it'll be interesting to see how those two systems kind of compete against each other, really.
Yeah, I agree. The hope is that, if those three all make it and turn into big thriving companies, that the legacy brands can use that to the dealership and say, look, these guys are eating our lunch. We have to figure out a way of doing some sort of a hybrid system, like what Ford did. Ford was creating like a hybrid system. It wasn't direct sales. You did order it on the Ford website, but it was by a price set by the dealership.
Sure.
And it was a non-negotiable price. But the dealers didn't like that you could then cross-shop their best price with the guy down the block. They didn't like that. So
I mean, that's kind of what we do now, but we have to sit there and listen to different sales managers.
It's too much work, Dom, to spend 4 hours haggling and getting your best price, then driving, 40 minutes across town to get to another one. And you could go to a website and cross-check every dealer within 100 miles of you and say, okay, he's less. Yeah, it's 80 miles away, but I'll drive there. So, it's a big deal. Then I think it's going to set back the U.S. auto industry in the future, not necessarily right now, but this is a loss for, I think, everybody eventually, even the dealers, because it's going to hurt them because people are going to shy away from the dealership model at some point. We're already starting to now, but as more choices come out there that you can do that, other automakers come and foreign automakers come in. I mean, we have a lot of dealers, a lot of foreign automakers, say the Chinese brands in particular, they're going to be coming here, and they're not going to want dealerships. So they're going to follow Tesla and Lucid and Rivian and
Polestar. Kind of an example of that. It's Chinese owned. It's a Swedish company, but it's Chinese owned, really, and that's where the cars are mostly made. Mm-hmm. Or actually, they're moving some to Belgium and here as well. But yeah.
So it was a big announcement today. It's very unfortunate, but it is what we have here. I'm not surprised. Once I saw Ford starting to backpedal over the last 6 months as the lawsuits kept coming in, I kind of thought like, Jesus, there's going to be a point where they just say, this, we can't fight. It's a tidal wave. We can't win. And that happened today.
Well, let's ask Kyle and Martin what they think of this whole decision. And thank you very much for hanging out with me for a little while. And I hope you enjoy your family event. Should be a good one.
All right, Tom. Thanks for having me on. Take care, guys.
All right. We'll see you soon. Are we back? We're back. Hey, we're all back. Look at that. Hey, Kyle.
Good morning.
How's it going?
I'm doing well. How are you all?
All right. Hey, exactly what are what are you in this morning?
Rivian.
Right? Rivian R1S, it looks like?
R1S, yeah.
Is
the
that
pre-refresh one.
Okay, so first gen.
Yep, first gen R1S, max pack, dual motor. Needed to borrow it. I'm actually borrowing it for quite a long time, but I just needed it for a race to Vegas. And I'm in California at the moment, and then I'm going to drive it back to Colorado, and we're going to do a bunch of stuff with it because we also have lined up EV9. We have that long-termer EV9.
Right.
We also have arranged a Model X next week and an EQS SUV. So it's
nice.
all the big three-row electric SUVs. Rivian didn't have a new R1S in time, but I thought it was cool enough of them to let us borrow this one for the next few weeks.
Right. EQB, you're going to do that as well?
No, because it's not a big three-row.
Right. It is. It's a bit
it's
tighter.
Like three-row usable. Because then we'd have to do Model Y as well.
Right.
And there's no sense of doing Model X versus Model Y.
True. Man. Wish we could get it snag a Gravity, but I guess it's a little early for that yet. But
way early.
Hey, before we move on too fast, I just wondered if you had any thoughts about that decision by Ford, the Model E dealership decision, dropping that, because you've bought plenty of cars like the old-fashioned way through dealers as well as direct from Tesla. Did you like what Ford was trying to do, or?
I have no idea how we're going to get away from the dealer model, but from my perspective, dealerships provide no value.
Oh, okay.
So I don't like
Well,
using them. I even our closest friends who are dealerships,
right.
we run into a pain. I remember we're really close with a dealership in town, and Alyssa's sister bought a ID4, and then they like charged her all the, extended warranty, this, that, the other.
Oh,
And I'm like, why are you doing this to her? And we made them unwind all that stuff. But it's
right.
just like there's always something at a dealer, and they're always out to get the money. And I hate to be so negative because I'd like to say there are a few good ones out there, but even the good ones that I have worked with, and we work with dealers all the time, provide a poor customer experience in the end. So I much prefer buying a car online from Rivian, Tesla, Lucid, something like that. It's just my preferred way.
Okay, I haven't talked to you about this for a while. So I mean, in my mind, I was thinking because I know you do have friends, at dealerships, and you get along with people who in the dealerships, pretty well.
Yeah,
So
people at dealerships generally are car enthusiasts, but there's
right,
so many different people that you have to talk to and that are involved with the sale of a vehicle. It's not just the salesperson or the
true.
sales manager, but there's lot managers, there's F&I
So
managers,
many
there's a
managers.
delivery person. It just the list goes on, and
Yeah.
somewhere on that chain of 7 people involved with your purchase, someone's going to be an asshole.
Right. Okay. Okay. Let's leave that there, and so enough. We got some more news to talk about, but I want to just wait for a second because I want to hear you. You drove a Porsche Taycan last week from Zuffenhausen, Germany, to Istanbul, Turkey. And I wanted to hear about that a little bit. So you have a 2-hour video on Out of Spec Motoring channel, and so people could check that out because a video is worth many thousands of words, of course. But most, I'm curious about like the charging in the different countries and what other EVs that you saw, like in the southeast of Europe or southeast of Europe and in Turkey.
Um, bunch of interesting stuff. So the video is live, of course. You can
Hmm.
check that out. It gets more interesting the longer you watch.
Okay.
So I definitely recommend people, like, if they're not into the beginning, just like kind of skip past most of the stuff, because we've all driven through Germany and Austria on
Yeah.
our channel together. Like, it's not anything crazy, but when you enter Serbia and Bulgaria and you start charging in the middle of like fields, you're like,
Yeah,
whoa,
yeah, yeah,
cool.
yeah.
Turns
Yeah.
out we have quite the high number of Bulgarian viewers on Out of Spec, which I was
Okay.
excited to see, and I really
Brilliant.
enjoyed Bulgaria. That was the highlight of the trip for me. It was just because there's so many Chinese cars and interesting things happening around there. So the trip was amazing. The cars we saw Great Wall Motors stuff, especially going through Bulgaria. In Turkey, we saw a bunch of Togs. Togs were
Mm.
quite common, of course. So
Right.
most
So
like a
tell,
lot of
maybe
police
tell
cars.
people, maybe tell the audience what TOG is.
Tog's a Turkish electric vehicle automaker, and it's the only automaker in Turkey, as far as I believe, or as far as I know. And they're nice. They like seem like pretty cool cars. I gotta play around with one, and they've invited us to go play around with them. So I gotta go back, which is no hardship because Turkey was awesome. I
Yeah.
had no idea how cool of a place Istanbul was, the surrounding area. It was just really amazing. So I got to go back and spend some more time.
Dom, weren't you there recently, or where did you
No,
go?
I was in Slovakia and
Okay.
Hungary, which I think you probably had to drive through those as well, right, Kyle?
So I drove through Slovenia, but not Hungary.
Okay. But probably through Slovakia, I'm not really sure. It's a really bizarre part of the world, and it's like so deep into Europe that I don't know. I have a hard time wrapping my head around I need to look at like maps, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the countries we drove through were Germany, Austria, Slovenia, Serbia, Bulgaria, Turkey.
No, Croatia. I thought you might go
Oh,
through
yeah.
Croatia.
I knew I was missing one. We hit Croatia.
Okay. You didn't stop at Remats, though.
No,
Okay. That would
there
be
was
cool.
no time for stopping. We were kind of with a group, and
Right.
there was like this. We had the real problem of the trip was the border crossing into Turkey, and we knew
Okay.
that was going to be a problem because there's a lot of issues with people gray importing vehicles. There's a 220% import tax luxury vehicles into Turkey.
Wow.
And so a lot of people like try and sneak cars in. So they have a rule by law that whoever drives a vehicle into the country has to be the same person to drive it out of the country. And in order for that to actually work, I was flying home from Istanbul, as were a
Right.
couple other people. We were on a time crunch. So Porsche had to fly in people, thankfully also friends of ours. So it was great to see everyone from their press department. And then we met up with them in Belgrade. They drove with
Oh.
us to the Turkish border. And it was just quite the process. They drove the cars over and then hung out with us in Turkey so they could drive them back over the border. And then they all flew back to Stuttgart. It was quite a logistical workaround, but it was really cool. So, this was something that Porsche put on to sort of demonstrate the long distance capability of Taycan. But ultimately, Mike, who is on the screen right now, he just wanted to go on a road trip, and he did it how I would do it, which is like, let's just invite some friends and go for a drive and then call it work. So, and we
Right.
just had the best time. It was really great.
And so this is the post refresh Taycan, right? So what was the spec that you drove?
Yeah, so I drove this Provence rear drive Sport Turismo, which we don't get this spec in the US. But it
Rear
was,
drive Sport Turismo.
yeah, rear drive. And we
Ooh.
don't get the Sport Turismo at all in the US right now until the GTS presumably comes in the near future.
Okay.
But yeah, it's 97 kilowatt hour usable, fastest charging EV I've ever experienced. It does 300 kilowatts, holds it all the way to 65%.
Ooh.
It's insane. You're talking 10, 12-minute stops, and it is borderline too fast charging. And then, the car is unbelievably quiet and stable at high speeds for the German Autobahn sections. Nothing new there.
Right.
It's been, but just more efficiency, more range, and faster charging.
Sweet. Yeah. Anyone have any questions? Any more questions? Do you have any questions for him, Martin?
No, I'm happy to see Kyle driving through some countries in Europe which he hadn't previously. It's a great experience. If anyone hasn't done it yet, road trips across Europe are pretty easy to do in an electric car now. And of course, the Porsche, one of the best. I mean, obviously it's easy in a Tesla to drive around the world, but you can DC charge anywhere now, and a little bit of thought in some countries, but otherwise such a good experience. And just going to experience some cultures and different foods and menus and just stuff like that. It's great to do a road trip like this. And yeah, this is one for the weekend when the kiddos are in bed. Grab this video, stick it in your watch later list on YouTube. I'll give it a thumbs up so you know you bookmarked it, and then just come back to it and enjoy it. And the motoring channel. This is how I got into Kyle's videos. Was his long motoring channels, not so much your reviews. And this is sort of old school, out of spec for me. So I absolutely love stuff like this.
Yeah, more motoring content for sure. That's what I love to do. I mean, the whole reason that
Right.
I got into this was adventuring, driving new places with EVs. And it used to be driving from like Connecticut to Florida. Oh my God, can you do that?
Yeah.
And now it's like, okay, can we make it to the Arctic Circle? Oh, that's easy.
Yeah.
How about going across Australia? I mean, it just keeps getting crazier. So EVs can really take you anywhere.
That's what I like to do. Like circumnavigate Australia. Just like go around like the fringes of the coastal roads of the whole island, continent, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
It's pretty cool.
If you want to do that, just let me know if you need a driver. All right. You also this week you also had a video update on your Nissan Leaf. So we talk about a lot of expensive vehicles, a lot of expensive EVs on the channel. But for some people, like a Nissan Leaf, I guess is still a great way to go.
Yeah, and Leafs are a great car. I mean, there's a couple things to look out for on used Leafs, of course.
Okay.
So, I think we have a lot of viewers that still don't drive electric. Surprisingly, a high number of our viewers are still electric curious, which is fine. I think we're the last people to try and convince anyone to drive an electric car, but we're here just to present the facts. But a lot of people just want to try out an EV, and for $3,000, you can buy a Leaf now pretty easily. It's kind of a low risk, dip your toe in the water city commuter.
Right.
That's very reliable. These are the cockroaches of the EV world. They just don't die. The only problem with the Leaf is the battery pack. I mean, there's a lot of problems. It's pretty ugly. But other problems with the Leaf are the battery pack is not liquid managed, liquid cooled, and so they will degrade faster than other electric cars. So you just find one from a cool environment that has high capacity just drive the crap out of it. You'll sell it for what you paid for it. It's a free car if you run it for a year. They've hit rock bottom, and just play around with it. Dip your toe in the water.
Right on. Yeah, I kind of like it. Martin thinks it's pretty sporty, apparently.
I like not that one, but the newer Leaf. Like, although it's the same, although the latest Leaf is still effectively, there's bits inside that which are original spec Leaf. The outside looks different, but some of the bits have been used over and over again. But I love the Leaf. I absolutely love if you don't need Chatham, if you don't mind CHAdeMO, if CHAdeMO is not a problem for you, and for so many people it's not an issue.
Okay.
Then I mentioned it in the news segment at the beginning. A new Leaf for 28 grand. Get a 2-year-old one that'll be way less than another 25 grand, and then it's 2 years old, and you can apply the used EV tax credit, 4 grand to it. And so just get some stellar deals on Leafs. I just think they're such a great car, and although Aria is their new favorite child, the Leaf ends this year. The 2025 model year will be the end of the Leaf in the US, and then we get whether it's called New Leaf or they'll use the Leaf name, I don't know. But it's such a great vehicle. I absolutely love it, and it gets forgotten about all the time.
I forgot. I didn't realize that Martin was like such a Leaf enthusiast until we did
Never owned
a batteries bargains episode or this week. He was all about that Leaf, man. So
I've never owned a Leaf.
Great.
it was a great episode, actually. If you haven't watched that battery bargains episode, have a look on our YouTube channel, whatever. It's there. We do one pretty much every week, and they're a lot of fun.
So a friend of mine had a V2, what would it be? V to H. It wouldn't be V to G. It'd be vehicle to home charger that he'd finished with. And he said, "Do you want to buy it off me?" And it would mean that I had to also buy a Nissan Leaf to make it. And I almost did recently. I was like, "Yeah, I'll buy the charger, then I'll go buy a Leaf as well." But it was during a time when I was just really busy in my personal life, and I was like, "I can't start rewiring the house. My wife would kill me."
You can trade in your MG for a Leaf.
Still got the Leaf. Well, actually, Mum's got the Leaf, the MG at the minute because
Okay.
they've got the MG5. They're a 2 MG family now. They got the estate car, which they like, and but they went down to one car because they're both retired, and then my mum was thinking, or my stepdad's always out doing stuff, or I like going fishing with him and stuff, and she was on her own. So I said, well, you take the MG until we need to sell it or whatever, and then so we're down just to the Polestar and the Golf, but that MG's brilliant, really good, great car as well.
All right. So let's talk a little bit about news. Yesterday, Tesla held its annual shareholders meeting. As usual, it was an opportunity for the company to show shareholders and the world what it has accomplished in the past year and what its plans are going forward. This year, the drama surrounding the event was really around whether or not shareholders would approve a motion to restore a pay package worth tens of billions of dollars that had been thrown out by a Delaware court, as well as a connected resolution to move Tesla's legal home to Texas from Delaware. So, of course, the yes vote doesn't mean that Elon Musk will get the money. The pay package is still tied up in the Delaware Chancery Court, where Musk hopes to have the judge's initial ruling overturned. If that ruling stands, though, it's expected that he will take it then to the Delaware Supreme Court. So this shareholder vote isn't legally binding, and they did vote actually to approve the pay package that the judge had overthrown, to sort of reapprove it, and it's just let the system know that the shareholders are kind of indeed behind him on this. Let's see, so it isn't legally binding, but Musk is hoping it will influence the judge's decision. So legal experts consulted by the Associated Press were split on whether that would happen, whether it would influence the judge. One thought it would not, of course. Well, another a lawyer who defends companies against shareholder lawsuits, said it gives Tesla a strong argument to have the decision overturned. So we all have our opinions about whether or not he should be awarded the tens of billions of dollars. I think it's worth like 44.9 now. Originally, it was like $56 billion, but $56 billion, that's a lot of money. But yeah, in the end, anyway, our opinions don't really matter so much here. The situation has been getting a ton of publicity, and I think we needed to talk about it just a little bit at least. So I know for myself, it stayed top of mind during the whole presentation yesterday. So when Musk was talking about keeping the FSD transfer window open and maybe bringing back the referral program and how those things drive up the cost of cars, I had this pay package thing in my mind. Well, I guess $50 billion would probably bring down the cost of cars as well. But I don't know. Martin, did you have any thoughts about the vote of the shareholder meeting that you wanted to share at all?
Well, I mean, if you watch the shareholder meeting, you wouldn't think that there are so many clouds hanging over Tesla right now. The revenue is declining. They've got an overproduction problem, which is just a nightmare in car making world. They can make something like 2.5 million cars, and they're selling 1.6 million cars, and so. Great for us. We get incentive. We get free supercharging here in the UK. We're getting decent, I think 0% deals on Model 3 in the US right now, or something like that. So it's great for the buyer. It's great, but not great for Tesla. But if you watched it, you wouldn't think there are any clouds hanging over, the company. It was cheering and hollering and whooping on what is a very dry thing. It's a shareholder meeting, and then. There was lots of talk about robots and robo-taxis and how the cars will drive themselves, and that is. I don't do a podcast about cars that drive themselves. I couldn't care less really about autonomy. Autonomy and EVs always get interlinked, don't they? But
yeah.
I like driving cars, and so when the conversation turns to cars driving themselves, I don't really care. He mentioned about 3 new cars coming. Said that Tesla is going to be worth 10 times its current value because it's going to become a robotics and an AI robo-taxi company, and it's all sort of drifted into territory that I don't really engage in. I read the I know you watched it, didn't you, Dom? So you have more of opinion on than me. But I read it. I didn't watch it live, but I read all the coverage of it and thought, well, there's nothing really about the cars. And then when the chairwoman Robin Denholm did say, and we released the Cybertruck, and the crowd went dead and quiet. And I'm like, that's the thing. Like the Cybertruck is the latest thing. And actually how the Cybertruck is made is the latest thing. Like, let's talk about the innovation that went into that, and the 48-volt system, and power share is fascinating, and the next generation of home storage and grid storage is really interesting. But Tesla won't talk about that at the minute. They want to talk about robots and cars that drive themselves. So it sort of doesn't really lean into the stuff I'm excited about. And Elon Musk confirmed there'd be no refresh on the Model Y at least for this year. So it doesn't desperately need it. But again, the Model 3 recent refresh, that performance car is stunning, and it all sort of gets a bit forgotten about. So,
True.
Pass me by a bit.
Yeah. The focus did seem to be on forward events. Not so much about what they're doing right now or what's going on with the company right now. There was some talk about the 4680 cell too, and how they expect that to be cheaper than cells they buy from suppliers in the future, which means it hasn't been, which we kind of thought it would be. I don't know. What'd you get from that meeting at all? Did you watch, Kyle?
No, not my area of expertise, unfortunately.
Right. Justin was on there. Did you see that?
No.
Our friend Justin, Bearded Tesla.
Yeah, he was part of the meeting.
Yeah, you got to ask a question and everything.
Oh, okay.
It's kind of cool to see people that actually involved with that. But yeah, the whole thing, it seems kind of not divorced from reality exactly, but I mean, it's kind of what they're supposed to put a very positive spin on what's going on and their future ambitions and things like that. So yeah.
I don't know what makes a company valuable or less valuable to investors. I know as a car enthusiast what makes a product better or not, and it sounds like it was not a very product-based meeting.
Right. Yeah, that's true. In my mind, I like to lead product, make a good product, and then the profits will follow, basically. But yeah, they talked about a lot of future products, robot, and they didn't really get into vehicles that much, which is kind of, what we're there for. We're all about the vehicles. But anyway, we can just leave that behind because, we like talking about product and actual electric vehicles here. So let's move on to something else that I think is pretty interesting. So I saw this piece on a Recurrent Auto website, and I thought it was, pretty neat. So it shows a result that most would not expect. It was like a little study they did. They were looking at like 13,000 Teslas, and they did not see any statistically significant difference in range degradation between fast charging more than 70% of the time and fast charging less than 30% of the time. So They caution though that the effect would could still surface given more time. Data from the vehicles. Data came from vehicles from 2012 to 2023 model years, but 90% of those was it 13,000 vehicles were from 2018 or later, and 57% were from 2021 or later. So these are not in the aggregate, very old cars. So they did suggest a couple of things for protecting your battery against degradation, in spite of the result. If, like they said, if you plan to hold on to your EV for the long haul, you may still want to save high voltage charging for road trips, like DC charging, or try to avoid fast charging when your vehicle's battery is very hot, very cold, or at an extreme rate of charge, such as 5% or 90%. All of these situations can put extra stress on the battery, they say, and the BMS. So, Kyle, does that stand up to your perception of degradation in your own Teslas or other EVs?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've known for a long time that fast charging does not seem to affect the longevity of the battery pack in a measurable, user noticeable way like it should. You would think just slow charge it all the time. So everything that I've had in my own experience in I don't know how many years I've been driving electric and doing a lot of DC charging on my vehicles. I'm sitting at a DC charger right now. That DC charging doesn't totally affect it. I also don't think draining it that low really hurts it that much at all, especially if you charge it right up. And same with full charging it. If you full charge it and then drive it immediately, that's okay as well. What I have found to consistently reduce usable capacity in a noticeable way is daily 100% charging, letting it sit, and especially 100% charging if the battery is warm. That really hurts the car. But really, these things just hold up amazingly well. I mean, look at our Model 3 as an example. It's a 150,000 mile Tesla Model 3. It has gotta be over 70, 80% DC charging. I mean, it's pretty much always on a supercharger. And it's only lost 11% state of
That's
capacity.
great. That's amazing.
Plus or minus. So I just don't, I just say use your EV, but when you're not using it, just keep it at a reasonable state of charge, which I keep my cars as close to 30 to 50% for storage as much as possible. But don't let the car limit you. Everything we've learned about capacity loss is just don't worry about the car, use it, enjoy it, and then, if you can take a little bit of good care of it when you're going on a vacation for a week or a month or 6 months, just set the charge limit as low as it'll let you, keep it plugged in, and you'll be fine.
So what do you keep your Polestar at, Martin, at your home?
I keep that at 50% because we don't do, unless we're doing it on a road trip. But as many people know, I work from home. My business model is to aggregate the news on a podcast. And so I don't require to be anywhere else apart from this room for 8 hours a day. And so I don't really go anywhere apart from local trips, like my, kiddie drop-off, kiddie activities. Our folks, Emma's parents, about an hour away. And so unless we're doing a longer journey, I just always leave the car at 50%. I leave the home battery at 50% if I can. We have a 10 kilowatt hour Solar Edge home battery with NMC cells inside it. Like for home storage, why isn't it LFP? But either way. So I try and keep that so that on a really sunny day, we've got somewhere to put out, because we've got solar panels, we've got 17 panels, we've got somewhere to stick it. And on a cloudy day, we've always got a little bit of hopefully, if I plan ahead, some battery in the garage to run off of and minimize our electricity bill. And I just don't think about it. And I think many of us that have been talking about electric cars for a long time, we've lived through, Nissan Leafs in Arizona having their batteries absolutely mullered by the heat, and we've lived through edge cases, and we've talked about, because it's interesting to talk about examples at the edge. As Kyle says, though, unless you've got an LFP pack, in which case it needs to be charged to 100% to let the BMS get its head sorted, then you just don't need to worry. As we're finding out, again, it's another one of the myths around electric vehicles, which the batteries last 5 minutes going to landfill. These batteries are too valuable. Not a single EV battery's ever gone to landfill, just too valuable.
But Martin, the thing is, it's not that it was a myth generated by the anti-EV people. This is what the scientists thought. This is what the automakers thought. That everyone,
Yeah.
I have a RAV4 EV from, I don't even know, 2001, 2000. It's one of the first gen ones. And they
You've,
said the battery would only last 5 years when they sold that car. It was a
Wow.
5-year lifespan to that battery. It's now
Wow.
25 years later, roughly. It's
Right.
like 23 years on. And we just revived it and it works fine.
oh, really?
Wow.
So
What kind of
yeah,
capacity you got with that?
we haven't gotten that far yet.
Okay.
But it still
Wow.
drives. And Declan did a launch and he drove it around his neighborhood. And it's like, okay, so everyone is surprised, including the scientists, as this report alluded to, as to how well the battery packs hold up in an electric vehicle environment.
Yep. And it's very safe. And as Kyle says, if you got a typical not LFP chemistry, don't let it sit 100%, because that is going to, if you're new to batteries, you can Google the term dendrites, which are these little things that grow, and if it goes, they grow through the separator. That tends to be pretty bad news for lithium-ion batteries. But all of these things that years ago we were talking about, like, I better not charge the car fully because, in case I get these little things growing in my battery, forget all of that. And you'll see a lot of news around e-bike fires as well. I saw some stuff in New York recently. They were talking about e-bikes and people charge them in apartments. These batteries are very cheap. They've got very cheap BMS on them. There's no thermal management. You don't know where the cells come from. And again, it gives batteries a bad name. But batteries in EVs, although they might have the same DNA as batteries in laptops and e-bikes and e-scooters, just don't worry about it. And this another data point here from Recurrent, only using Tesla. And I must say, for the longest time, they've had themselves sorted. So this piece of this data only comes from Tesla analysis.
Right.
Is worth pointing out, who are the
Yes.
best of the best at understanding, because they make the batteries themselves. But either way, yeah, it's brilliant news.
On
was
this
just-
topic, the one thing that I'm really curious to learn over time is nice i4 pulling in over here, actually.
Oh, cool.
Good color. I'm really curious to see how these really high charging power vehicles, like the high C rate cars, like the new Taycan, like Ioniq 5, how they hold up over time. Because every time I do a video on the new Porsche Taycan and I'm showing how it charges or whatever, people are like, but what about the longevity? And I talked to the Porsche engineers, but everyone said that about the first generation car too, because that already charged crazy. And I talked to the Porsche engineers and they're like, yeah, but we were way too conservative on the first gen car. We need to
Right.
dial it up. And I'm like, but you're already pushing that battery. It was an 83 kilowatt hour battery pack that would hold 270 kilowatts to 50%, and then just slowly taper off to that. And they're like, yeah, but we're way too conservative. These things are not degrading nearly as fast as we thought. And they were like, we also expected most of our drivers to DC charge way more than they are. And so they're like, okay, now with a little bit more customer data, with, we know we can push harder. That's why the new car, also bigger capacity helps, just rips deep into the pack. And so on one hand, I'm being fed from the Tesla lovers in the comments, which I immediately like my Teslas, but like, they're like, your Taycan will explode in a year because you're charging it so fast. And on the other side, Porsche is telling me, like, we got to push it harder. This doesn't charge fast enough. We need to keep going. So I'm not, the answer must lie somewhere in there, that different chemistries respond differently, different cell physical types. Taycan uses a pouch cell design versus cylindrical in Tesla. All of these things factor into the charging performance, but I can't wait to see how Ioniq 5s with very high mileage hold up. They seemingly are doing very well.
Yep.
And then maybe we'll just see even higher charging speeds, even with the chemistry in the vehicles today.
Yeah,
if everything's just holding up so well.
Look at China. So you've got 5 C rate, and C rate is just a multiplier, and yes, it only affects the peak charge, all about the curve. But you got 5C batteries in these Chinese cars, the Li Auto Mega, which is their people carrier, the MPV, the Zeekr 001, and others as well. And they are hitting these huge high speeds as well. And BYD and CATL this week both independently talked about 6C batteries ready by the end of the year in customer cars. And so these charge rates and the new Neo charger, which went into the ground this week in China, I think it's like 480 kilowatt, maybe 800 amps. So in China, they're really pushing it much more than the Western car makers that we talk about. So again, we'll see where those batteries end up in 5 and 10 years time. But at the minute, it doesn't seem to be doing any damage at all. So this is now absolutely equivalent to stopping for a comfort break to get some gas and to get on your way again. Like a 10, 12 minute, as you said with the Taycan, it's almost too quick. Like you feel bad saying it because, like, you know, we shouldn't say that, but it is almost too quick now on a DC fast charger.
One of the stories I have on my list today, I want to talk about just a little bit, might as well mention it now. The Lotus Emea just achieved a record-breaking charging time, 10 to 80% in 14 minutes. And I'm not sure what battery they have. Do you know offhand, Kyle, what battery that is? It's got to be at least 5C though, right? I'm thinking. But it's like 10 minutes.
I don't think 5C. I think it's just going to do 3. So if it's roughly 100 kilowatt hour pack, maybe it's doing 350 kilowatts maximum. I don't think they're pushing it higher, are they?
And just holding it.
Just sitting flat out.
Yeah, this was on a 400 kilowatt DC fast charge. I can't find that what it picked up, but
so 4C, 3 to 4C, somewhere in there.
Right.
Yeah. Amazing.
But then, like Martin said, it's not about the C rate; it's all about the curve. And if you can manage the temperatures correctly, if you really understand how your cell responds to high current charging over a long duration of time, and you, of course, you know it's 4C cell. Yeah. So I can't wait to test the Emea. That Emea versus Taycan versus the updated Lucid Race to Vegas. That's what we need right there.
Wow.
All right. Just let me know if you need a driver. I'd love to try one of these Lotuses out. Man, that'd be awesome. Or even anything, really.
Well, even the Electra was pretty cool, but the Emea is like next-gen stuff.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah.
I thought it was... they share the same platform, right? They're both on the C platform, the SCA platform from Geely.
Yeah. But the Emea charges way better than the Electra does.
Okay. I mean, the Electra still charges good, though, doesn't it?
Amazing.
Right. 800 volt?
Yeah, but...
Yeah.
Yeah. So Lotus is totally getting in on the charging game.
Right. Through Geely. And so Volvo could too then, right? Next, Volvo and Polestar should be right in there as well.
Yeah, Polestar is doing something cool with their Polestar 5, is it? Their sedan situation.
Right.
They just did 10 to 80 in 11 minutes? 12 minutes?
I'm not...
It was a prototype. Actually. It's not a series production car.
Okay.
But they're doing something really interesting as well. So they seem to be getting on it. We have Volvo say anything interesting in this space. Hey, a question for you. Speaking of Volvos, do we know what's going to happen with EX30 with this import tariff?
Man, I'm not exactly sure yet. You know, there's a lot of speculation out there that, you know, things seem to be like, it seems like it's delayed right now. Like I kind of expected to hear more about it happening, coming to dealers.
They're on the roads in Europe now. I see them. This week I saw a bunch.
I think there's I think they've made like 70,000 of them, 70,000 of them so far, but just not for this market yet.
They're really dinky. They're much smaller than you think, but but it's great. Like if you like a Kona, not the new Kona, which is a bit bigger, but the old Kona, the old Nero, EX30, cross drop amongst those. And how much room do you need in a car? Or maybe it's a second car on the driveway, or just it might suit you. They are quite small, and it is just a screen. It is literally just a screen inside. But they're on the roads. I see them around here more and more now.
So Volvo is going to make the EX90 in the States. They're about to do that. So I know they can take some of the when they export, and that's what they're going to export the EX90 from the States to overseas. So they can use credits from that export against the import tariffs of the EX30 coming in.
They can also backdate that for 5 years.
Okay, so they may be using that loophole to bring in the EX30, but I think they're going to eventually have to bring in produce the EX30 in Belgium, in Ghent.
Yeah, and that's always been the plan. They were always planning to produce it in Belgium as a second factory for the car.
Right.
But I'm just wondering if they'll make us wait till that's spun up until they come to the U.S.
Yeah, that was 2025. It was meant to start, and so they might. I think they're going to bring it forward. I think you're right. And then you'll get the cars from there.
Right.
Not China. Yeah, good shout.
All right. Anything else we want to talk about? The recurrent battery? No, that's all that. I mean, there's not a whole lot of news this week. We might have to end the show early a little bit.
That's no problem.
Like you
Yeah,
mentioned,
cool with
like
me. I
you,
want to go driving. I'm taking this R1S up to Angeles Crest. I want to do a thermal test on the new. So Rivian has this dual motor system in here that's oil cooled versus their quad motor that's liquid, or I
Oh,
should say, water glycol jacket cooled.
you're in
So
a dual motor.
yeah, dual motor max pack.
Oh, okay. That's
Oh,
that's
wow.
the new motors, right? They make those themselves.
Yeah, these are the
Yeah.
enduro motors, and they're the same motors that'll be in the refresh. So drivetrain
Right.
wise, it's no change from this to the refresh car.
Okay.
And so that's why I was fine using this for Race to Vegas, because Rivian said they might change charging just minor, but they're like, it probably won't make any difference. So just use this one. The results, this car on the 21 wheels will be almost identical to another one on another set.
Oh, is that i4 just pulled up
nice
beside you?
i4.
Yeah, I thought maybe he was coming to say hey, because we've had i4 owners come and say hey,
Uh-huh.
but he's actually having issues charging on the
Yes.
old Tritium units back here
Wow.
because they're broken, two of
Yeah.
them, and no one's here to fix them because didn't Tritium go out of business?
I think they're having some struggles for sure.
Certainly
If they're, I don't know, what's the latest on Tritium? Do you know offhand, Martin?
The last I heard was the news we talked about on this podcast. So, yeah, we'll wait and see if they can maintain those service contracts and things they would have in place. But,
Right.
yeah, I think that, the more we talk about the chargers, which, if they do go wrong, get fixed very quickly, the likes of the Kempower chargers, we know that for the companies that want to buy those and roll them out, I think they have different specifications in terms of how many parts you have to keep on hand. If you want to be a reseller, or I'm not sure what the phrase is, but if you want to buy the Kempower stuff and sell it in your country, I think you have to have a fair amount of their parts on your van, as it were, because they take fixing them very seriously. I told you at the beginning of the show about Mercedes have chosen Alpatronic for the Mercedes US network. Great decision, really great hardware. So I feel sorry, because the Tritium stuff was good for a long time, but it needs to be.
Yes, so
If it's
that
not- if it-
Mercedes network with the Alpitronic situation.
Yeah.
So I was there. I knew this was going to happen. The thing is, why? So Mercedes and ChargePoint have always had this partnership, and I think they're. I have to look. We're going to do an out of spec podcast on this next week, so I got to ask Francie to figure out how this will work. But my understanding is they may still use the ChargePoint backend software to run the Alpitronics, because ChargePoint and Alpitronic and ChargePoint and a bunch of different chargers operate with their software. So it might be where now they're just adding a second supplier and will continue to also have some ChargePoint sites and some Alpi sites. But what's crazy is just the footprint difference between the Alpitronic all-in-one 400 kilowatt, pretty slim, nice looking unit. That's about the same footprint that just the dispenser for the ChargePoint unit needs. And then
Right.
they need these two huge power bricks with ChargePoint to feed the 400 kilowatt output. So I'm not saying one's better than the other. I'm just saying one is very space efficient and one is not.
Right. Yeah. The Alpatronic stuff is really interesting. I'm kind of hoping we can get somebody on here, like a special midweek episode to talk about from Alpatronic.
Oh yeah,
see
that's
what's
easy.
going on.
No problem. We can
Yeah.
do that.
Yeah.
They're really nice.
Speaking of midweek shows, I think we're going to try to do a special battery show next week. I don't know if you know about this, Kyle. So we're talking to a professor, and I think we're going to put together something for hopefully early in the week. But we'll talk about that afterwards. For now, what's the fastest EV in the world? Commercial EV. The Rimac
Fastest
Navara?
in terms of top speed.
Top speed.
The production car, Rimats, yeah, of course.
Gotta be Rimets, yeah.
Well, the Aspect Owl, which I don't know if you recall that car at all, but it just destroyed the Rimac Navara's top speed record. So it hit 272.6 miles an hour. So this is a car I've seen it around. It's been in development for some time. This is supposedly a production intent vehicle,
But not production.
No,
production intents.
Yeah, they have they have a video of this happening, and you can see the interior of the car. This is not this is like
Okay.
Intense roll cage and
a
wires
prototype then.
everywhere.
Okay.
Very much, yeah. but it looks kind of cool. That whole body shape looks like the long tail McLaren going on there. But it's built by Manifattura Automobile Torino, MAP, as they call themselves for short.
And what was the top speed?
The top speed, I thought I had written down 272.6 miles an hour.
Yeah, that's not too bad, is it?
And I think the Rimac Navara is 258, somewhere in there.
Yeah, but you can buy a Rimac. Well, no, the likes
Right.
of us can't buy,
Well.
but somebody can buy a Navara. So
Right.
you can't buy this yet.
But I thought it was just worth mentioning anyway, because it brings the EV speed record back to Japan, where it was originally held by the how do you say that, Elika, for the longest time. I don't know if anyone here do you even know the Elika? Kyle, you'd love this car, I think.
No.
Oh my God. Okay, let me pull up a picture real quick then, if I can. So-
While you're doing that, I would like to mention that I have lost range while charging,
What?
which
How
I've
is that
never
possible?
seen before. I don't know. It must be recalibrating because I'm just sitting here. The oh my God, that
Yes, 8 wheels, man. If you want to
I
go
love
fast,
it.
back in the day, you needed all the wheels, and this had all. They had 2 versions of this. They had like an acceleration version, which could do like I think a 0 to 60 in 3 seconds, which at the time. So this is 2004, I think.
That's like 12-inch rims on it. I love it. It's awesome.
Yeah.
wow!
Right.
Look at they got brakes for each one.
Yeah. I think I believe it's in-wheel motors. So they had the acceleration one, and then they had a speed one. So this would 230 miles an hour back in
No way.
2004.
Wow.
God, wow!
plus it
that's
looks-
Very cool.
really cool.
It looks
Right.
cool AF, right?
Right.
And this is from and they developed this from the original version of this was like this limousine kind of thing. It was like 24 feet long or something crazy. It's like a bus basically, with like 8 wheels.
I absolutely love it.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
did
kind
it
of
actually break a speed record then?
I did, yeah, 230 miles an hour.
That's what it was built on top of.
And that's the original there, which it looks like I don't know
Oh,
what's
I like
going
that one even more.
That's amazing.
I wonder where these cars are now, because these are photos from Wikipedia. So I don't know if they've been in mothballed, if they're in cold storage or what. But it'd be pretty cool to take that Elika out of storage and put it back on the track and just to see what's going on with that. I believe it has in-wheel motors too.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Hey, before we go, quick question from one of our viewers, and that is from Taker610. Kyle spent much time in the BZ4X/Solterra. I think a genuine serious question.
Yes, sadly.
Sadly.
Yeah.
So BC4X, quick sum up of the BZ4X. Good deals
Well,
on
to
that
be-
car right now.
to-
They're
well-
selling a lot of them.
They just refreshed some technical components for the new model year. So I need to spend some more time with the refresh ones. But I've driven all 3 variants available in the US on the E-Tenga, or is it Tenga E? But the E-Tenga
something like that.
platform.
E-Tenga,
Toyota next generation architecture. And the E is electric in the front or back. I've driven the RZ, the BZ, and the Solterra. And they all are bad in many ways. And they're all the one saving grace that they have, the true best feature about those cars is the all-wheel drive system. It's awesome.
Oh,
They have a
right.
great, fantastic all-wheel drive system. You live on a rocky road where you might be lifting a wheel, or if you're in snow or something like that, really awesome all-wheel drive system. So can't fault them on that. Amazing brake pressure with torque vectoring, better than Rivian at the time when I tested them. I was really blown away with that. Other than that, they're crap.
Oh, there you have
There
it.
you go. And they're affordable. Jeremy Beard says they are leasing for $190 a month over 3 years in Longmont.
Yeah, well,
so again,
that makes sense.
Yeah, I
There's
mean,
a
I think,
reason. There's
I
a reason
think-
they're cheap.
right. I mean, I think if people just live in town and just need a commuter vehicle, I think it's that's a great deal, and I think it'd be fine for that. It'd be great commuter vehicle. It's just
Yeah,
not,
they're actually not terrible to drive like around town. It's just whenever you have to do something with a car, which is usually why people buy cars, is to do something with them, then it becomes a problem. But if you're just literally driving around town, then
Right.
sure. Then don't ever expect to DC charge them and have a good experience.
Right. Another little bit of
And
news
that's
that
just on the first gen. Sorry, the refresh ones they say will charge better.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, we'll see what that is because they had like there's like a time you can only charge it like twice in 24 hours or something.
They're giving a $50 gift card just to test drive it. I'm totally going to do that.
Wow.
That's amazing. Okay.
And then go and have dinner out for free. And
Yeah,
then,
that's right. Thanks for dinner and a video because I'll film the test drive.
Yes. Yeah. And then what you do with your gift card is the punchline. So that's
Yeah.
amazing.
Oh, amazing. Oh, I don't even know why I got a thumbs down. I didn't do that. That's a thumbs up. What? I didn't know the iPad had those reaction things.
Amazing.
Oh, you're on an
That's cool.
iPad?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Well, there we go. That's our show.
So,
there's more.
yeah, I just want to we can mention a couple of things real quick. The Jeep $25,000 EV will be the next Renegade. So if you're familiar with the Jeep Renegade, this is a gas version of that out there, and apparently they're going to use at least that nameplate for a new EV. I don't know.
But don't they have that in Europe? What is
No,
the
that's
one
an
in Europe?
Avenger. That's the Avenger.
Ah, but it looks like a Renegade.
Yes, it does. And so it'll
Does it,
start
though?
at start at under $25,000. That's probably after a federal tax credit, you would think. But they finally seem to be bringing some cars to you, which is good.
Oh,
In a couple of years.
I had a meeting with Stellantis this week with some of their PR situations.
okay.
And I was like, okay, first of all, how do you guys know anything about electric? And they're like, no, we're really struggling. No one knows how to communicate. And I was like, why don't we just have a meeting with the PR representative from each Stellantis brand? And I can let you know what an EV focused journalist or YouTuber or content creator would want to know about a car when you present it, because they launched the Wagoneer S and
Wagoneer,
they had no information on the car, no
Right.
specs, no charging, no nothing. They like couldn't figure out what people were even asking. So I'm like, why don't I just take an hour and say, like, here are the things I look for when I go to a product unveil or to drive a car for the first time. Here's the things that matter to me and hopefully this next wave of auto reviewers. And they were like, yeah, that sounds great. But they have a different person for each brand who manages communications. And that's a lot of people to train. And I'm like, you probably just need one EV person for the umbrella that like we could go to.
Yeah.
Because
Right.
there's no
For
one
no-
I can go to with questions.
For North America, because they have EV, EVs in Europe, right? You have Citroen
Yeah.
and what other brands they have over there. But actually,
Yeah,
do
the
they have
bunch.
Citroen?
Yeah. No,
Who's
I don't know.
Stellantis and Fiat, of course.
Yeah, they've got loads of EVs over here, but that's just as Carl says, a training issue with the US team, and
Right.
and they do some really interesting things as well. But and there's loads of choice on offer, and they're making a new third row one coming out soon, and yeah, it's pretty quick. The 4 different platforms they've got, but it looks like they're starting to wind up the US now, and they do need to get on top of it because people are going to start asking questions when they do a vehicle launch, like they did with the Wagoneer, which is, oh, how big's the battery? Like, what's the usable? What's the gross? Like, that's a simple question.
Someone's here to bail me out. Fiat, Peugeot, Opel, and Citroen. That's it. Sometimes I get the Renault brands mixed up with the Stellantis brands. I had
so
to.
Renault, Nissan, Mitsubishi, yeah. So it's old PSA, if you can.
Did you see the new Alpine electric?
Yeah, let's throw that up on the screen, Martin.
Okay,
let's talk
yeah,
about
I
this
can
thing
do
because
that.
I don't know
It's
anything
like
about
an
it.
R5 with an Alpine badge.
Yeah, it's wider. It's a couple of inches wider track. But more than that, it's got its own suspension. They've re-engineered. They're taking 100 kilograms out of the gearbox and the drivetrain.
Wow.
It's significantly. They benchmarked it against the new Mini Electric, and it's significantly lighter. Let me find some pickies, and I'll put them on screen while Don does the intro to it.
Was this part of the show notes, by the way? Were we going to
Sorry?
talk about this?
It's in the show notes. I didn't write it. Well, the stories in the show notes. There are no actual notes because I didn't think we'd actually get to it.
But it's cool. We're talking about weird French cars. This is the weirdest new French car.
Yeah, no, I love it. Yeah, just wait for Martin to come up with a picture of it. So this is like the R5. That's like the Renault R5, then, right? The new, like, it looks like the Le Car, I guess, is what we used to call it here in the
Yeah, it's
States.
the baguette holder one.
Yeah, but
Now
they've
it's an Alpine.
They've
But now
Alpined it.
it's been Alpined.
It doesn't come with a small battery. It's a 40 kilowatt hour battery. They're not going to bother with that, obviously. So 52 kilowatt hour is the only battery they'll spec in this.
That's good.
But But yes, just yes, all of yes.
It's
Yeah, it
so
looks pretty
cool.
fun. That
That's
looks even
brilliant.
better than my Spark. I would trade a Spark EV for this.
Just hop in this and have some fun. Very cool.
Oh yeah, it
Yeah,
looks
it looks
great in the interior.
interesting. Yeah, love it.
All right, let's go to France.
Wait, can you go up a little bit, Martin?
Yeah, like that one.
Just to the interior one?
Yeah.
Okay, never mind. We're good. I thought
Okay.
it was a USB-A port, and I'm like, oh my god.
Hang on a minute. Yeah, like let's make sure. But it looks, it's properly re-engineered from the Renault 5. It'll be made in the same factory in France, I believe, as next to or on the same line as the Renault 5, maybe, but next to it, maybe. But yeah, it's been properly alpined, and it looks proper. It looks really good. And there's a bunch of other stuff that in there, like it'll teach you how to drive better, and it'll have the noises and the whizzes and bangs that performance car makers seem to be putting in. As long as you can turn them off, I don't care. I mean, I don't use them, but as long as you can turn all those sounds off, then that's fine. It looks really fun though.
I'm really loving this thing, man. This looks great.
Production starts this year, by the end of the year, they said. So, yeah.
So, man, there's got to be some way for this. Is like that same situation with the Cupra. You know, why can't you bring it over, rebadge it as something else? You know, like I know we've got how many brands do we have? Stellantis brands here.
But I heard a rumor that Cupra is coming to the U.S.
It should.
Oh, really? Oh, Cupra, really to the U.S.?
Yeah, I heard the rumor from the Turkish guy.
Oh,
So Seat is not going away. But Seat is still sticking around. But Cupra, I think, is their new favorite child.
yeah, definitely. Cooper's getting a lot. I mean, they've got lots of great styling and just. I mean, mechanically, it's no different, right? Cooper from the Seat stuff.
From from Seat, yeah, and from VW, yeah. It is. I think infinitely better than the ID3. Not just in how they've styled it, but how they've engineered it and how it drives. Much better.
Huh. Interesting. Okay. Yeah, the ID3 just not making the waves like they expected. So, yeah. Urban says Cooper is coming with Tavascan.
Tavascan.
Yeah, good.
Tavascan.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be great.
All right, I got a roll, unfortunately.
All right.
There we go.
Any additional thoughts on the Rivian refresh? We missed you here last week.
Oh, so many. Maybe we should do a midweek. I mean, at this point, everyone knows the refresh. I did a 2-hour-long episode on it. There's not much more to say that really matters, but there's so many little details. Maybe I can join one of the Rivian chats on Sunday or something like that.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Yeah. Or we could maybe a Rivian update friend Isaiah would like to do something with us. So we haven't really spoken to him about his thoughts about the refresh yet. He's got one now.
I just feel like we've done refresh overload. We've done out of spec podcasts, videos. It's been my life for a week, and it's just a refresh.
That's true. On the out of spec podcast, you have Tom talking about his, and also what's his name in Central Florida? Jose,
yeah.
Jose in Central Florida, yeah, and he's a great source of everything, all the Rivian information as well.
Yeah, look up Rivian Tracker.
Rivian Tracker, that's right. Oh, I know what I wanted to share before we went. Okay, so one final thing. We'll get that hot hatch here, but this was a pretty interesting piece of news. Did you see this, Kyle? This gentleman shared this on x.com. Alejandro HTX shared that he believes this may be the first Iona site. He found some project information about it, details. They've got 4 DC chargers. This is coming to Houston area. It's a little on the on the west side of town. 4 DC chargers, dual ports, so 8 parking stalls with a canopy, restrooms, and a vending area. So that all sounds pretty good. It says easy access to I-10 and multiple restaurants in the area. Starbucks is next door. There you go, Kyle. Starbucks ready. So I don't know. Have you heard about any other Iona installations besides this one, or is this the first that we know about?
This is the first that's been publicly shared.
All right, $1.5 million basically estimated cost.
Yeah, it's about what it costs to put in charging.
Yep. Okay. Yeah, new restrooms, vending area, security room. It sounds it should be kind of interesting. I wonder if this will be like a model for what they have coming.
I think it's going to be a flagship location because they're going to have a physical structure. But I think everyone launches with these lounge types, and then
Right.
they'll just build chargers into the future.
I think there's got to be a decent business model around like lounges like that.
Nope, not at the moment.
Yeah, I don't know. I just feel like there's a really good opportunity there that no one's taking, or maybe there isn't. Maybe they've actually looked into the mechanics and the dollars, but leasing the land and
I
these
mean, people really
partnerships
do.
with-
People really dig into that stuff, and there's not much money to be made at the moment.
right.
But if you can tie it with another function or another service, and it's not just for EV drivers, then
Right.
then you're just looking at a retail store.
Yeah. I think that's just kind of what the model they should be looking at. Open to the general public, but also anchored by the chargers that are there. Interesting that this is like a flagship space, maybe, but it's only four chargers or 8 slots. It's kind of small.
That's eight chargers for the normal person, which
Right.
it's better than 0.
Yep.
Yeah, I just want to see more because I just read about so many EVgo, just different, the different established brands they have, like their lots are starting to get really busy, especially when there's some of them go down. The maintenance isn't
Well,
what
it's
they
like
need.
I'm at this one right now, and there's
Okay.
charging this way. There's charging on the other side over there. I mean, charging everywhere where I am at the moment.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, you're in California though.
Yeah, this is a Pasadena. There's like 30 stalls in this parking lot where I am.
Nice. See, so,
Yeah.
and I think Houston probably needs a charging of that magnitude, if not now, very shortly, right?
Yeah. All right. Well, I gotta go. I'll see you guys.
Yeah, we'll see you.
Take care.
And I think that's going to bring us to the end of our show. Bye, Kyle. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them below or get in touch with us on the social media platform of your choice. Don't forget, if you like the show, please give us a thumbs up, click subscribe, tap that bell icon for notifications. Thank you all very much for joining us, and we'll see you all again next time. Ciao.